These dual plenum intakes increase air velocity, providing maximum airflow and even distribution to all intake ports on both sides. These are perfect for naturally aspirated engines looking to build torque from slightly above idle throughout the mid-range all the way up to 6,800 RPM. These are available for LS1, 2, 6, and LS3, L92 engines.
Sweet, I'm gonna put it on my Duramax. So if I take these, and that will actually, and I'll just slightly have to modify it. Nothing major. So it's gonna work. Here she is, 1964 C10. We're gonna put the Duramax and the two-wheel drive Allison in there, making it a legitimate tow truck. All right, we got the turret mounted, pins around. This is a 2015 bus frame, cheapest air ride control system on the internet. It's Dutch. Twin turbos on it, just because we're getting 2 stacks behind the cab. Willet sawzall, Willet bandsaw. A little bit of trim clad goes a long way. I wonder if I'm the first one carrying a rim into Home Depot. Okay, so if you guys were gonna swap a Duramax into anything, it would look something like this, kind of cluttered and all this stuff on the top, and that's perfectly okay. You don't have to touch any of this. I stole the map sensor for something. Can't remember what. Hopefully I can find it, because I think that's like 40, 50 bucks. We are changing the fuel lines from the Fast. We're gonna use these grassroots fittings. So I need to take these fittings, I'm gonna cut this fitting off and stick it on my lines right here. And to do that, I gotta take some of this off. We might end up moving the alternator and the AC compressor, and that's only because I really want to make this thing fit. I need to have the intake plates cut, and the intake runner for this thing is actually just a big open channel, and you see what that I mean when I get to it. So anyway, let's get into it. Here we go. Okay, so I really wanted to fire this engine up in its stock form, as if you would take this Duramax, put it into whatever you want, get the ECU flash, plug it in, and fire it up, because it really is that simple. Unfortunately, Alex, my guy at Billet Performance Manufacturing, had to have some surgeries done, and that delayed making the harness, and I can't delay the project longer. I had to start stripping the top of the engine down. So what I'm doing is making room for my intake and moving my fuel lines out of the way to compensate for that intake. Okay, so I've got all the fuel lines out of the way, and now we're just left with our intake. So this will be coming from your intercooler, goes down into this Y bridge here, and then it feeds your intake plenum on both sides. Now you can't tell me that this cylinder and that cylinder doesn't get more air than these ones at the back here, or even those two on the front. So, like everything, we make it better and we fix their problems. We're gonna distribute this air a little better. They have to do that because the turbo's in the way here. By us moving our turbos to the outside here, we got all this room on the inside. So now I basically have to figure out how to put my fuel lines down lower underneath and then run my intake plenum on top. So here's the issue that I knew I was gonna run into. The intake ports for the cylinders are spaced 2 apart. So there's actually 8 holes for the 4 cylinders because they've got the 4 valves per cylinder. If you look at the intake, this is the bolt pattern for that. But I think what we're gonna have to do is cut this flange off and rebuild this box more or less, and then weld the runners onto it. Basically, we're gonna put a space in here, something like that. Stay. By taking these off, we can change the intake of it, and actually that cylinder is actually farther ahead. It's not gonna be completely centered, but by building that box, we're gonna definitely even that out way better. These welds are so nice. I don't really want to mess with that. So what we're gonna do instead is build the box for the bottom and have it continuous all the way across, just like it was before. But now you're jamming the air in 4 spots rather than 1 in the middle. I'm going to cut these flanges off and angle them so that it'll go around the air compressor and around the alternator. We're just gonna go over here. If this is angled this way, Then I can do my rad hose coming up and over top of the AC compressor can come right here. And then the intake pipes can come over here and get jammed in nice and equal. So when you open this hood, that's gonna be the showpiece, like bam, right there, beautiful. So this is the look you get when you're like, it might actually work. So this bar connects the two runners together, but if you can see, I'm actually angled up a bit. So if I take these and lengthen them, that will actually allow these to go farther out, and I'll miss the AC of the alternator altogether, and I'll just slightly have to modify these, nothing major. So yeah, it's gonna work. Sorry, Holley. Okay, so I took the bandsaw and I cut the intake plates off. I took the plates to a machine shop in town there. They've done some lots of work for me before. I tried to explain that I need to make a riser that splits the air from the 4 runners to the 8 runners in a head. Trace the bottom half, and then see, I already lost you guys. So what I did was go to Tuesley and said, do you have any spare heads? And he said, actually, I got a whole engine on a skid with a bad head gasket. Why don't you take that one? So we got another Duramax. What we're gonna do is take the cylinder head right off. And I think what we'll do is take it to the steel shop in town, just get them to cut 2 inches off the cylinder head. Well, there she is, nice and light. I need this pattern. So let's see if Vic Powell here can cut me 2 inches off with a bandsaw. Here we go. Still all there. Okay, so Vic Powell couldn't do it because it wouldn't fit in. I went to Ian's and I wrecked one of his blades because I don't know what happened. It was going okay. And then it wasn't going okay. So now I gotta buy him a new blade. The only thing left to try is a Diablo Demon. Let's see if that can cut this head. I didn't think it would be that difficult to cut a piece of aluminum. Wonderful. Okay, so there she is. That would be the cylinder side. This is the side that I cut. See if we can make some sort of adapter. Okay, so went to D&M, and it's very hard for me to project what's in my head to the guy there. Super smart guy, but I don't think he's a gearhead. Basically, I don't know if you guys can follow this. This is what I need to attach an adapter to. I need this bolt pattern on the bottom. I need to raise it up 2 inches. I need this on the top, and then I need runners to go from here down to the individual cylinders. So they're working on that. They are ordering me a solid chunk of aluminum that we can start with, and I think this is gonna be a multi-step process. So while I'm waiting for the materials, we're gonna carry on with our fuel lines, work them around the intake plenum, make sure that I have the room for the pressure return and all that fun stuff. Let's get into it, here we go. Okay, so while we're trying to figure out the intake, we need to move our fuel lines because they were kind of up high here on top of the intake and directly in the way of the runner. So what I wanna do is move this block down into the valley down here underneath. I'm going to have both fittings come out the back. I'm gonna bend this line to here, put this block right here, and then make a line fit from here to here. Now, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna have to get another one of these lines that go on the left-hand side here. Luckily, I got one from Andy. Lots of scrap Duramax is kicking around. These 3 ports are all connected, so it doesn't matter which line goes where. This is your pressure sensor, and then this is your regulator. So your return goes off with just that banjo fitting, and very straightforward. So you can put this whichever way you want. I'm going to do it this way, so that both fittings are coming out the back, so that looks nice and equal, and then the one line going to the front. Then we'll figure out the banjo fitting and go from there. Now, if you're doing it cold, you can just use a tube bender, and you can bend the lines if you've got the room. Because this is a tight bend, I'm gonna warm it up. I'm not gonna get it red hot. I just want to warm it up so that you can kind of control where the bend goes. It's very high pressure, so try not to get it cherry red. Got that a bit warmer than I would have liked, but see what happens. Okay, there it is. One looped. That's the pressure going to the block, and then the two coming out behind the intake. I gotta try and make this one a little better. Seems a bit tight here. We'll see what happens when I get the intake. Trying to remember what the rules were for bending injection lines. These are very high pressure. So I'm going to have to try this out before I tell you guys to do it yourself. But that is nice and neat. So the intake will cover all that. I'll use the turbo mount here and build a little bracket to hold this. But I might put my FICM down here too. So that is the fuel injection control module that was on the valve cover right here. It's kind of ugly there too. You can buy straight lines and bend them yourself, but that's mainly for injectors on the older systems, which only pop at about 3,000 psi. When you have the old system, you have to have each one the same length, because as the mechanical pump makes pressure, the lines actually do flex. These are a lot thicker than those lines. They're a lot harder to bend too, because these are much higher pressure, but because it's common rail, all the pressure is equal and the same, and the lines can be different lengths. The ones on the Duramaxes are the same length, I think. Maybe, maybe not. They're a little bit different. I know the Cummins ones are different, but it's the same pressure here as it is here and here, so the lines don't make any difference. So I'm gonna tear this wiring harness apart and start rerouting that. I need to have this sensor plugged in, which used to be right here. Also need to have the return line sensors figured out. All right, I'm gonna wait before we go too much farther, because this is kind of a pain. I move this, switch this over a couple times, but this return is a big deal, and it's high pressure. So what we need to do, it'd be nice if I could do like a U. I had it nice and flat, but my runner ends up right about here and here, so I'll miss it. So I can do the return off of that, but I'm gonna leave it for now. What I think I might do is cut a couple blocks just so that I can bolt them to here, which would be the intake plenum that we're working on. So I grabbed this 4x4, I cut it into a 2-inch strip, which is roughly the size of the plenum that I need. And I'm going to CNC this into a manifold that looks 100% better than that. I'm not sure what CNC stands for, but I think it's cut nearly close. I think that's what I'm aiming for. So here we go. There, cut nearly close and should nearly fit. From here, I took the wiring harness off. The intake plenum is getting machined kind of right now at the machine shop, but for the most part, all the welding and that is pretty well under control, and the weather's kind of decent outside right now. You can see it's kind of bright out. So what I'm going to do is pressure wash the whole thing off. I'm going to paint the engine and the frame as it is right now. I'm just going to use trim clad gloss black. That'll look good for now, and when I need to weld more on it, then I can just grind that off and paint that as I need it. It'll match nicely. Then we can start tearing the front end apart, ordering those pieces. I kind of want to rebuild the engine, but at the same time, I just want to make sure that everything works first before we spend a pile of time and energy on that. So even if it leaks a little bit, whatever, that's a job for next winter. I don't want to get caught with the GTO where I spend time on things that I don't really need to and then lose half the driving season. So here we go. Before I pressure wash, I'm gonna let it soak with some engine degreaser. Well, there she is, much cleaner than she was before. I'm not gonna say that the spray did all of this, but I'm sure it definitely helped. Transmission's nice and clean and dry. I did use a hot wash, and I'm gonna tell you that the hot wash did most of that. Gonna lift the engine out now. I can roll the frame back. We're gonna paint the frame where it sits. Oh, this two-post hoist is kind of handy. And for cleaning the rust off, because it's just surface rust where the fire was, I use this Must for Rust crud cutter. I just kind of move it around, let that sit. and it'll take the rest off. Paint the inside, and we'll put the engine, we'll paint the engine. Here we go. All right, so that leaves a bit of a goo on there. I think I was a little bit too generous with the amount. I've had it happen before though, where it turns white and it says to rinse it off. So I'm gonna try that. A little bit at the back there. Does take the rust right off. You can see that where I missed a spot. That's from before. That's afterwards, and then that's probably where I sprayed a bit too much. So pressure wash it off, and then we can get into painting. Here we go. Okay, that looks much better. A few things before we start painting. I basically just want the inside painted so I can put the engine back in it again, but we're gonna do a little bit of welding yet and cutting. I need to cut this off and then mount the bumper somehow. And then I gotta weld the shock brackets back on. Before I paint this, I'm going to weld angle iron just straight up and down to the height of the box. I'll weld the box to that angle iron, we'll wrap around this way, and then we'll put a step coming out the bottom, and that'll be where the floorboard goes. And then I can trim that to size afterwards. So, here we go. Alright, ready for some paint. I just taped off all the connectors. Ready to go. I generally just trim clad, primer, and then black. I'm not taking the fuel lines off because as soon as you crack them loose, I gotta pull the injectors and clean them. I'm gonna leave them alone. But she's gonna look pretty. Here we go. This turned out really nice. With the intake painted the off-white. That's going on the cab. It's gonna look so stellar. The signature runs on the valve cover, so everybody will know that it was me that painted it. You'll never know that it ever leaks oil. Can't prove it. So we really want to give a shout out to Detroit Steel Wheel Company, who said, Rich, we just came out with 20-inch 8-lug rims for 3/4 ton trucks, and we think you're gonna dig this look. Chrome ring on the outside, center cap covering up our big axle stub. Took a little bit to get tires. We ended up buying some Cooper Xeon LTZ tires. They're not completely low pro, they got a tiny bit of meat on them. They're a nice road tire, but they're still have enough load rating to be able to actually tow a car. Not that we're gonna tow a car very often, we still want that option. So we are still waiting on 2 tires. So a 305/50 R20 is not that common of a tire. So they've been on order for about a month and should be getting them any day. All right, so this is the Downtown Smoothie rim, and they're cream white. You can get it plain as well, so you can powder coat it or paint it whatever color you want. I got the bullet lug nuts. We're going from a dually wheel to a single wheel. From here to here is 11 inches, but the actual tire is about 12 inches wide. With the Cooper Xeon tires, we'll still get our load rating. If we go too much wider, they're gonna be completely useless in the rain. We've got the center cap, which will cover our axle stub. But now the question is, did I get my offset right? That is the measurement from the back face of this to the outside of the rim here. So that determines whether you're gonna have any rub on the inside. I ordered the same offset as the original inside rim, and then with the dually, we'd probably be another 4 inches wide. I didn't want that look of this fender sticking way out the side. Just saying that though, I also didn't weld anything solid. This is still kind of tacked on. It's just hanging in place just until I had my rim, because it's much easier to do this after than doing it twice. These rims definitely aren't light. Oh, that's about perfect. Nice. So I could potentially come in maybe a ½ inch. I think I'm gonna wait until I have my tires before I do the Okay, so the front rim fits just as nice. It's pretty tight on the outside, so we might have to roll our fenders out a little bit. I won't know for sure until I have the tires. I'm not gonna do anything yet because some of you guys noticed that all my bushings and stuff are burnt or missing, and that's because this frame was in a fire. So we're gonna be rebuilding the entire front end. A-arms and steering and tie rods and ball joints and calipers. Pretty stellar. Let's go get some paint. I wonder if I'm the first one carrying a rim into Home Depot. Okay, so I was really happy with our GMC grill, but it turned into a GC grill. And that got me thinking, should I look for an M? I don't even know where it is. It could be in the yard, but with snow plowing, it could have been pushed around and damaged. So I'm thinking we should move the G over to here, flip the C around into a D and DG. Comment down below whether we should make it a GMC or just the Boss Garage. Here we go.